What do you mean 1 minute? You told me to go. Wow. Hey,
I'm still confused.
the right hand, tell me what the left hand's doing.
Pay close attention to those signs.
Now go for it. Now we're ready.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
All right, we want to welcome everybody here to MAG. It's October 1st, 2020. It's a little past 5:30. And so there will be no COG meeting. There is no public comment. Those that asked to be excused were Mayor Child and Mayor Hunsaker. So, I'm sure everybody else is out there on Zoom. So we're gonna go, the way I'll do with the voting, if I'm gonna ask for the vote, if you're against it, just say nay, and then we get your name. We'll assume if you don't say nay, that you're for it. Is that okay? Is that legal? All right, we'll do that. All right, we're gonna go to item number 1, approve the September 3, 2020 meeting minutes. Motion to approve.
Second,
And I'll have you guys say your name.
Acerson, Dan.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Perfect. Any opposed? Okay, no public comment. Action 2020 MAG Transportation Improvement Project, selection, final funding approval. Paul.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay with the mask? I kind of feel like maybe I should take the mask off while I'm talking. And
Take it off. Is that all right with you, Mayor?
Is that okay with everybody?
I'll say yes.
Okay.
Or is-
I just, yeah, I got it right. So,
The food exemption.
yeah, I'll take a bite and then I'll talk and then I'll take a bite and I'll talk. Okay. They're telling me I need to use the mic too. Hopefully it's not too loud.
Nope.
All right. Let me get this in my pocket so I don't drop it, which I almost just did. Just gonna forward, Andrew. It's going forward. Did I do that? There we go. All right. Sorry. So we're here. We're at the finish line for tip selection. We're grateful for all your patience through this process. It's been a little bit extra long, as you know. As you can see here, this is a list that should be very familiar to you. This is the prioritized list that this body adopted on our last meeting. So basically what we said is this is our priorities from the top to the bottom, and we need to work our way down to fund projects. So that's what we're here to do. We're going to finalize the funding, talk about what years and what kind of funds each project is going to get, and do what we can. So, and add those projects to the tip. So for funding, we are projecting to have, we've talked about this last time, we have about $105 million in revenue through 2024. MAG staff is proposing that we withhold $10 million for current projects that we know need additional funds. These are projects that were already selected and that they've either mentioned that they need more money, or there was one project that already came to us that was the Provo Canyon match money for the UDOT funds. We also propose to withhold an additional $10 million for those projects that we don't know yet that are underfunded or do not, or need potential additional funds. We also have their COVID protection. When we started this, we kind of felt like we didn't know what the financial model would be after COVID hit, and we seem to be doing okay, but we feel like it's important that we withhold these funds. Last time we withheld $5 million of additional contingency funds, and we definitely spend it and then some. So we feel it important to withhold those funds. That leaves us with $85 million total funds to program projects this time around. So this is the list that we came up with. Hopefully it's not new or a shocker to you. You can look over here. You can look, this is the year a project will receive funds. This is the type of project or the type of funds that that project will receive. And then this is the total amount that project will receive. You'll notice there's a couple up there that are listed twice. That's just because we talked with that applicant, or for some reason we needed to give them money in 2 different years. And so that's why we're showing it. It's not that they're getting more money or double money, it's just that we had to split that project in a couple different years. So how do we get to this stage? The first step of our funding scenario that we've done for years is we identify which projects are eligible for what kind of funds. CMAQ, TAP, those are federal funds that have very specific requirements. There's also our exchange fund and our county funds, and there's some specifics to that as well. Once we've established what is eligible for what kind of funds, we start at the top and we work our way down. You'll see a little asterisk right there. I'll come back to that in a minute. We start at the top and we work our way down. We give the earliest and the most desirable funds to projects at the top, and then we work our way down. So if you're at the top of the list, you see Eagle Mountain up there. They're the #1 project. We have some funds available in 2021. So they're the top project. We gave them $2021. And we work our way down. There's another asterisk there. So let's talk about the asterisks. First, we talked about how we start at the top and work our way down. We look at each year and we work our way down, but sometimes there are projects, we have a fund that has some money in it in that year, but we don't have enough to fund the next project on the list. So instead of mixing funds and creating some chaos that way, we just work our way down the list until we find a project that fits how much money we have left in that year, and we fund it. So a good example of that is the Saratoga Springs Road. They're way down here on this list, #9, but they have 2021 money. That's because as we go down, we had roughly $700,000 left in that year, or 600,000 left in that year. And so we came down until we had another project that could be funded in that year. And so that's why, if you look and see that project way down there has 2021 money, that's why we do it that way. The other asterisk is the easiest and earliest and most desirable funds first. So not all projects are eligible for all kinds of funds. And so we obviously have various kinds of funds like CMAQ funds or TAP funds that are specifically for air quality projects or for bicycle pedestrian projects. And so we definitely assign those as soon as we can. We definitely try to give those funds to UTA and UDOT because they're set up to deal with those kinds of funds. And so you'll see that we kind of skip around a little bit with what kind of funds we give. And that's almost entirely an issue of whether that project is eligible for those kinds of funds, and that's the way we had to go. So moving forward, and #4, we continue on until we run out of the funds that we have. So just a reminder of the process. We started way back, actually over a year ago, but on July 20th, TAC made a recommendation to you to set the prioritization list. On September 3rd, last time we met, this body finalized that prioritization list, so there's no moving up and down on the list. Since that time, we've developed a funding scenario that was before you. On Monday, the 28th, TAC reviewed that list and the funding scenario, and they approved it unanimously. And so today we're here before you. There's the chance for you to finalize the funding scenario. And by doing so, all those projects that received funding will now be added to the TIP, and they'll be back on schedule, so to speak. Typically we would have done this when we adopted the TIP in August, but since COVID pushed our process back a little bit, these will be amended into the TIP. Again, just a final look at the list. There's a copy of it before you, but are there any questions I can answer? Otherwise, there is a suggested motion.
All right, any comments or questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
I move that the final funding scenario be approved as presented and the funded projects be added to the chapter.
And say Elder or Mayor Mann.
He's promoted there.
Yeah, well, it's close to conference, so, you know, surprises
No, he may
get
get
caught.
that, he may get that call.
Yeah,
Mayor State, I'll second.
okay, I've got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that
Thank you.
passes. Thank you. Let's move to 4, action, MAC tip station, Elk Ridge Drive, SR 164 intersection improvement. You're up again, Bob.
Yeah, can't get enough of me. First of all, one thing I just want to say thank you for your patience through the process of selecting projects. 185 million is more money than we've ever been able to program, and we feel grateful that you have such great people to work with. This is a tip modification. It's a request of UDOT. So here we have an existing project, Elk Ridge Drive. It was selected in 2008, and then there was an addition to it in 2017. If you look at the map here, we have the city of Salem. This road right here is I-15. And the Elk Ridge Drive project is building a new road kind of through this wet-ish area, all the way up to 164, which will then go over and connect to the Benjamin exit in southern Utah County. Now, and then the part that was added is actually, oh, my pointer's down. It actually continues down up the hill, but down south up into Elk Ridge. So as this project's been they're under design and they're getting close to the end and ready to start construction. But as they've finished design and looking at some of the projections, they're seeing that this turn movement northbound to turn onto westbound on 164, instead of just one left turn, they need 2 left turn pockets. Well, in order to do that left turn pocket, they need a westbound receiving lane. They need somewhere for that second left turn to end up in. So what they need to do is build 2 left turn pockets and then the 1 additional receiving lane through on 164 here out to the freeway. So UDOT is proposing to add $700,000 of transportation solution funds to the project. Transportation solutions, those are UDOT funds that we don't choose what they get spent on. That's a Region 3 issue that they do. But since you are the owners of our TIP and this needs to be amended into the TIP, we're here to say, yes, we approve that. And then it will also go to the Transportation Commission. So just to be clear, these are not our funds. This does not reduce that total that we talked about. This is solely UDOT money that they're putting towards one of our projects, so to speak. The previous total was 17,250,000. These new UDOT funds would get it up to almost $18 million. Are there any questions that I can answer on this project?
Any comments, questions? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to move that the tip be modified to add 700,000 UDOT funds to Elk Ridge Drive project. That's Mayor Fugel.
I'll second that, Mayor Johnson.
I've got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or any discussion? Sorry. All right, any opposed? I'll get there. All right.
Thank you again.
All right, major investment study update, Sean.
I'm just going to introduce everybody tonight. So we thought we'd take the time to update you on all the different major studies that are ongoing in the region, and we've got a lot of them right now. So is Claire, is she online?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, so Claire Woodman with Parametrics is going to present the Provo to Sandpoint High Capacity Transit Analysis, the Central Corridor Transit Study, and the Point of the Mountain Transit Study. Claire, Kim Clark with VIA Consultants is here, and she is going to present the North Lakeshore Study update. And then A.T. Stoddard, is he online? Okay. So AT is going to then present the Eagle Mountain and Saratoga Springs Transit Service Study. With that, Claire, would you like to walk us through it?
Absolutely. And I had sent along a few slides. Are they in here or should I share my screen?
We do have.
Perfect, thanks. So I'm Claire Woodman. I'm a transit planner with Parametrics, and I am on the consultant team for all three of these major north-south corridor transit studies that essentially run from southern Salt Lake County down to Santaquin. So it represents over 50 miles of transit corridor across Utah County. It's really exciting to be a part of all three of these projects and to be here to talk about these efforts today. I just wanted to talk about a few high-level points that really tie together all three projects. Kind of most importantly is that all three projects have really been set up to be collaborative, multi-agency efforts that bring together the MPOs, UTA, UDOT, and all of the local government partners along these corridors, and that there's really strong coordination between each of the projects. Although there are three separate efforts, they share terminus at both ends, north and south, and so we're strongly coordinating between all the different efforts. Next slide, please. So I'm starting at, starting at the north here, Point of the Mountain Transit Study. Like I mentioned, it starts in southern Salt Lake County and runs into northern Utah County. We're looking at an approximately an 8-mile corridor that connects Draper Frontrunner on the north down to Lehigh and Silicon Slopes on the south. We have 6 stations along the corridor. We have not selected a mode yet, but we're looking at either a rail investment or a BRT, bus rapid transit investment. And a real key driver to this project is connecting areas of really high economic development potential to the regional transit system. Notably Silicon Slopes in Utah County and the prison redevelopment site in Salt Lake County. And this project connects to the Central Corridor project at the southern terminus in Lehigh, like I mentioned. And this project is on a similar timeline to Central Corridor, and we're looking at wrapping up towards the end of this year. Next slide. Next up is Central Corridor. So this is picking up where Point of the Mountain leaves off. So we're starting in Lehigh and we're running south down to Provo. It's a fairly long corridor. It's about 25 miles. The BRT corridor, we've identified 30 stations along this route. It has a core north-south route, as you can see there, but it also includes a branch that runs east-west along 800 North from State Street to Vineyard Frontrunner Station to provide key connectivity to development that's occurring in Vineyard along that corridor and at the Frontrunner Station there. It also provides key connections to Frontrunner and also UVX and numerous locations along that corridor. This is also expected, the study, to wrap up at the end of this year. The executive committee did select a preferred alternative, and so this one is wrapping up probably November of 2020. And I don't have this in the notes here, but both Point of the Mountain and Central Corridor are in early phases of project development. So both are anticipated that once this phase of study is concluded, that it's going to go into environmental and preliminary design. Next slide, please. And the last study that I'm going to talk about is the South Utah County Transit Analysis. And this one is just kicking off next week, actually. And so we'll be looking at a 20-mile transit corridor from Provo to Santaquin. This corridor has been identified in MAGS RTP as a front-runner extension, but we will be looking at that as well as other transit alternatives, alignments, and modes in this corridor to come up with the best opportunity to provide transit in the study area. And so we're kicking off next week and we'll be done in approximately a year. So this one's a little bit staggered from the 2 that I previously discussed. That is my high-level overview. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I know that Eric Rasband and Mary De La Mar Schaefer are also on this call and are here to represent Central Corridor as well.
I have a question on the North Corridor study. What will differentiate between using the bus rapid transit versus the light rail?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so that is what we're about to jump into, is really keying up those key differences between the two modes and the benefits and trade-offs they provide. There's obviously a really strong benefit to bus rapid transit, given that Central Corridor has selected bus rapid transit as a mode, so it would interface really well. There is some desire still to investigate rail as an option, just in terms of catalyzing additional economic development. And we'll look at that in the next about 6 weeks to have additional findings to make a preferred recommendation on the mode.
You know what the cost differential is?
Yeah, rail is approximately 3 times higher cost than BRT, just looking at typical system costs across UTA's other capital investments. That's kind of a ballpark, but generally about 3 times more expensive for rail.
To operate or to construct?
For capital costs, so to construct. And operational costs vary a little bit, and I don't have those numbers in front of me right now.
So the benefits would have to be pretty big to not do rapid transit.
Yeah, and so we're trying to tee that up so we can make a good decision on the mode and move forward.
This is Kent Millington. I might just add on that question about costs, operating costs. The cost per passenger mile would be much less in the rail, because with one operator, you can move so many more people. But it's the capital cost that going in that is very heavy for the rail, lighter for the bus, but then the operating costs are higher for the bus per passenger mile. So that'll give you at least some indication there.
The maintenance costs. Ken?
I have a question on the Central Corridor and on this Point of the Mountain study. Do we have evidence of BRT working and gaining ridership in the state? Certainly other than the UVX line, which, you know, I think is pretty unique, given that it's bookended by the 2 universities, and you know, they're paying partners, and it's a free fare zone. In a fare paying zone, do we have data on that?
We do not have data from the state, but we are actually collecting that for Point of the Mountain to further illustrate the mode differences. We do know that bus rapid transit does have the potential to generate high ridership if it's constructed in a very high quality fashion, meaning that it has similar amenities, the light rail, it has similar look and feel, and an amount of dedicated exclusive right-of-way as light rail. So if BRT is constructed to that higher level of standard and isn't a bus that's stuck in traffic and has kind of just the flagpole for, you know, the station, that you really can generate that additional ridership, and it can be nearly comparable to light rail if it's done well. The challenge is obviously doing it well, and unlike light rail, bus rapid transit, you know, when the costs kind of start stacking up, there's always a tendency to want to drop down the amenities. So it's maintaining that high quality BRT is of critical importance if you want to keep that ridership up.
The other question I have is, when you lay up the front runner route against this Point of the Mountain through Central Corridor and even down to the South Utah County, obviously the main kind of people movement is north to south. And in fact, when you have this bird's eye view that you have currently on the screen, it shows how close these 2 north-south routes really are to one another. Mm-hmm. And so how do you weigh adding a second north-south line with all of that capital costs and right-of-way acquisition needs to just adding capacity and frequency to the existing line and making the right connections and nodes to that line?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that comes up in a lot of the transit work that we do. So commuter rail, front runner really is designed to serve regional trips. So people making long trips, say Provo to Lehigh, Provo into Salt Lake County, trips like that, where, you can get there, you're traveling a long distance, you want to have that reliability from transit. But it's one part of the transit network. And so really the purpose of this study, and when we were digging into the data and looking at where people are coming and going to, there really are a lot of smaller, shorter local trips that are happening in Utah County. It's actually quite unlike a lot of other travel markets we see, that there are these shorter trips that people are taking. And so really the purpose of this transit network is to provide a robust, high capacity transit network that can serve both those local trips. It also could serve those regional trips if people would like to use it that way, but the intention is really that you're capturing a lot of those local trips that Front Runner doesn't necessarily serve. And then, recognizing those east-west connections between the two is really important. We've heard that from the public, we've heard that from our agency partners, and so that's why we are providing connections to Vineyard, to Provo. There's additional exploration around providing connections at Lehigh. We know that's really important to UTA to provide that east-west connectivity between the two. Does that help answer the question?
It does. Obviously, I'm a big supporter of investing, ahead. I think that it's helpful to see this. It's challenging. As someone who's been a user of transit, but only in larger markets and more dense markets. And it's one of those things where we're planning for the future, but culturally, even if this existed right now, today, it's hard to envision many members of our community being active riders of these routes. I do see the things like connecting that 800 North to the Vineyard North-South line. Those are the types of things that I'm saying I think makes sense. So then you're overutilizing that existing line that we already have. Anyway, just a few thoughts.
That's great, and probably just worth pointing out too. So the main north-south route there does follow fairly close to where the existing UTA 850 bus route serves, and that is a real workhorse for UTA and has really great ridership throughout the county, seeing over 2,000 boardings a day. It hasn't been hit very hard by COVID. It's really showing its kind of utility in serving the needs of the people that are trying to use it to get to work, get to make trips. So it is a great north-south corridor, and UTA has done a great job promoting that service.
Sorry, you're saying that orange line is the existing 850?
It's similar to the 850.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Just hurry up on that study from Provo to Santa Quinn for us.
You'll be all right.
I second that.
People from coming down.
You don't want to go down.
Have you been to Santa Quinn lately? Doubles every week.
Yes.
All right, so go ahead.
All right. Can you all hear me?
I can.
I have a voice that carries. I'm Kim Clark. I'm actually with BIA Consulting and the PM on the North Lakeshore study. So what we're doing on this study is basically a 3-step process. We started in November and we did a really extensive survey through the public. So this project, just as far as location, starts Eagle Mountain, Saratoga Springs, goes through Lehigh into American Fork, Linden, Pleasant Grove, Orem, and Vineyard. So it's around that whole north side of the lake. So it's a regional study, and we're looking at how do we accommodate traffic for the 2050, for the design year of 2050. So we started in the fall with an extensive survey that went out, and that helped us move into the needs and ideas. And actually, we're about right here. We've got the needs identified. We're starting to draw the lines on the map. We've got a survey out right now that's collecting those ideas, and we're getting ready to, for the next month, really focus in on what are those scenarios. So we did take a break from about March to midsummer because it was a public process, so getting everything online, making sure we could get that out. So that's where we're at right now. I'm just going to give you a quick overview of what we have as far as values and what we collected. So we actually received 7,000 different comments that we broke down into various themes. I would say that this is actually broken down based on what we heard. So the numbers that we heard, represents transportation and access. About 20% of the comments were there. This was in regards to community values and what they felt were important for this area. The rest of them make up about 60, or the other 80%. So the other big one was the social and the culture. People really love where they live here. There is no doubt about that. They like the aesthetics, the recreation, and how close-knit the communities are. So what we did with these themes was we actually took them into 5 guiding principles. So the 5 guiding principles were, we just gathered what made sense, and it's meant to be very well-rounded. So these guiding principles are: create a reliable, connected transportation system, protect and preserve open space in the environment, promote well-being of residents and maintain culture, improve accessibility to employment, goods, services, and recreation opportunities, and collaborate regionally to identify and implement solutions. So that was something that was also very important, is how everyone's communicating with one another. What we have done with this is actually, we've got a nice detailed chart that you can go on the website and look at. It will give you all of the goals and objectives. So the way that we are going to use that, once the scenarios are defined, we'll identify how well they meet these guiding principles with that information. So we'll come back and review that. So then we moved on to what are the transportation needs. So we identified coordinating land use and transportation. So how does development and transportation work together? Increase capacity of the roadway system and create connectivity. Enhance and expand public transportation, further develop an active transportation network that's already there. And then while we're doing all of that, make sure that we're taking into account the environment and all of the important cultural and visual aspects of the area. So that came also from the survey. So as they were giving us their ideas, we broke that down and took that back to check that the public was saying the same things we were looking at for the needs. Then we did, of course, our technical aspect of this. And what we have is that in 2050, basically crossing across the Jordan River, we need to accommodate 400,000 trips based on the model that is showing. So right now, this map just represents what is currently out there. So it has the 2100 North Freeway. It has Lehigh Main Street, which goes all the way through and across the river. And then it has Pioneer Crossing. Of those 3 routes, we can accommodate 195,000 trips. So these lines on the map that we're drawing over the next month are going to be showing where we accommodate the over 200,000 other trips that we need to look at. But when we look at that, we, as I mentioned before, I'm gonna go to the next one. We want to ask the question of how do we reduce the number of trips? So the model is showing 400,000, but that is based on land use and what we understand of how the growth is going to happen. And also how to address the remaining trips. So the first item that we can do is actually look at land use and see how land use might be able to change. Are there opportunities for job centers in Eagle Mountain, Saratoga that actually keep people in the area? rather than having to go across. So are there schools that maybe we do an extension to some of the universities in that area? There's just different ways of thinking about this where we can actually try and minimize some of the numbers of vehicles that we're addressing. The next one are local and regional roads. So when we say local, that's more of the grid network. How are people moving around within the city? And then the regional roads would be how are they moving throughout the whole region? So looking at a combination of those. Transit, we're looking at regional transit options through that area. And then the last one is to actually look at how all of this connects and combines, and we give those opportunities for the great active transportation network that's out there and how we connect to that. So that's where we're at, putting all 4 of these different layers on top of a map and seeing what how we can accommodate those 205,000 trips. So right now we do have, as I mentioned, a survey out. So what we did was we took some of the ideas we heard early on, use that as kind of a jumping off point and let people add their comments to a map. The comments, the way they work is you can add comments, they can go in and comment on comments. So we kind of have streams of comments. We have this period open through October 18th. We are developing the solution sets. We have a meeting this week with the technical advisory committee to start drawing those lines, and then we would like to meet with mayors to discuss what those lines look like the end of October, early November. And then what we will do is actually go out again to public, say, here are the scenarios, here's how we evaluated them, and can we get your input on that? And so that will be the end of this year that we plan on having these scenarios and the evaluation. So we should have basically a good way of moving forward with that. Yes?
Just a question on the scenarios. Do you have any idea that how people are going to be transitioning to working remotely? The COVID forced it on a lot of companies, and some of them it may stick and others it may not. Do we have any idea how sticky the remote working will be long term?
So from a transit standpoint, what kind
Because
of?
if you're working from home, you're not
So the,
impacted.
well, and the transit, that's why the land use is so important, is the transit is going to be based on how well there needs to be density in order to carry and transfer people through the area.
But if people work from home, that's going to impact
Back
and forth. So that'll impact your trips if you're not going to Salt Lake.
400,000 is going their daily trips.
Right. So, but if they're working from home, there won't be as many daily trips.
Yeah.
So if we have an idea how sticky the remote working is, a lot of people are working remote now with COVID. And then when COVID goes away, how many of those will go back to working in the office versus staying?
It'll be a lot.
So
It's not gonna stay the way it is. We can't operate the way we're doing now. We gotta have people in the buildings. We can't have them at home.
there are companies, I mean, yes, the technology is getting more comfortable. We don't know the answer, right? Because we're in the middle of it right now. So as we do this study, we'll come up with a scenario that will say, are we gonna have less demand for people going to work, and present that then to the committees and to the public. But we'll also say business as usual also. And then as we move forward, we continually update our plans. And so 4 or 5 years from now, if we really do see a reality that there's less people commuting to work, we might not need it all, right? But if we do need it all, we need to be looking at that also.
There are a lot of studies or a lot of people looking at how is the reduction going to happen, especially with the last year. So the problem is we're still in the middle of it. So we don't know what the outcome is going to be. So as we move forward, keeping an eye on that, but is there a certain percentage point that we can look at for people, for instance, who are going to stay working at home and businesses that may look at their models differently can we see that over a trend over the next couple of years? Right now, it is, as Sean said, a guessing game.
Just try and figure it out, so we know, and we'll be just fine.
Yeah, I know. It's interesting, during the Great Recession, there was a lot of talk that the BMT went drastically down, meaning the vehicle miles traveled. And there's a lot of talk at that time, it's never gonna go back. And then it mushroomed even further, right? And so, yes, there's a lot of new technology, and I think we will have more people comfortable with some of those technologies, but we gotta have time to figure that out.
And that might also open up creative ideas from a land use perspective in other areas that maybe they're not huge, massive office buildings, but more of these office buildings that allow for people to come and work there, and it's not the entire company needs to be in there at the same time. So then you actually could start spreading those around. This is something that some people across the country have been looking at, is how do you put these job centers around and accommodate a number of different companies within one area that are still moving into the area. But there's always that balance of, you bring development in, you get tax base, you also have population, how do you balance that out? So it's a bit complicated, but I'm convinced that we'll have a good solution and a good scenario at the end. Any other questions?
If I could just speak up on that a little bit, because I've talked to a number of our large business owners in Lehigh. And it's kind of interesting, some of the things I'll tell you, you can tell where people think it's going, right? And, they were concerned, a lot of the larger software companies were feeling pretty darn comfortable not having employees. They felt that they were always nervous about it, but reports back was it's working quite well. But what we're also seeing is, and we just kicked off another groundbreaking yesterday of these companies like WeWork, and there's a couple, I can't remember the names of some of the others, that just have individual office space for people if they don't want to work at home and travel a short distance and work inside a small office. They just rent the space, right? And they only have to rent it when they're there for the day. And that's probably, but one thing that got my attention this week is I also seen some information coming from home builders. And what they're starting to see a lot of is there's this enormous jump in requests for home offices, right? They don't want that room in front of the house now that's called the home teacher room or whatever, right? They don't want it that anymore. It's not for that purpose specifically. They want it wired for high tech and it's specific for a home office, because they're believing they're going to be working from home.
Deal.
Are there other questions? All right, thank you very much.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate that.
UTA is projecting 2 to 3 years to complete the
Last meeting.
It's gonna happen. Yeah.
He was there before. I've seen it.
Okay, AT, are you on the Zoom meeting? Would you like to present the Eagle Mountain Saratoga Street study?
Yes, good evening. This is A.T. Stoddard. I'm with LSE Transportation Consultants. I don't have any slides for presentation yet. We just got signed contract this week, so we're just really getting ready to start. But we'll be looking at the area of Eagle Mountain and Saratoga Springs, addressing questions both of local mobility and then access to regional transit services. One of the first things we're going to be doing is working with Chad Eccles to form an advisory committee and hold a kickoff meeting so we can start identifying issues, and then we'll be looking at what's already been in the regional transportation plans, the long-range transportation plans. I think of particular interest is the UTA study that they've been working on for microtransit in a variety of zones throughout their service area for potential extension of services. And one of those zones includes this area, and so we're looking forward to getting the results of that. My understanding is They are presenting their study to the UTA executive level on October 20th, and at that point, the information will be available. We can get detailed results of that to see what that analysis is. Then we'll be incorporating that into our analysis, both of short range and long range demand estimates. We also intend to put out a community-based survey, so we'll be working with MAG staff to put that together in the advisory committee and publicize that to get that information out, and so we get additional input. And from there, identifying possible long range and then short range strategies to provide transit service. Again, both on the local mobility in the communities and then their access to the regional transit services. So that's it in a nutshell. We are getting underway, and we'll be working on getting things scheduled now and looking at wrapping this up early next year. So I'd be happy to answer questions, but again, we just getting underway, so not really a lot to share in terms of work we've done at this point.
Any questions for AT? Tell them to get started and get going then. All right. All right, let's move to number 6. Reports, Federal Highway Administration. Any report there?
It's Steve Call here. Most of you probably know we did get a continuing resolution that gives us 1 more year of FAST Act funding, same levels as last year. That just passed last night, so you get to see me again for another year. We approved the STIP today too. That might be of interest to you all. And that took place. A lot of things at the end of the fiscal year.
Great, thank you. How about the Utah Department of Transportation?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I think I'll just give you an update, a quick update on the status of the I-15 Tech Corridor project. You recall that we started that back in 2018 in May, and we are on the final stretch right now. That project is going to be substantially complete by Thanksgiving, and you'll see all the lanes open and the trails open by the end of October. So we got good news on the horizon there. And for those that are interested, in the commission meeting next week, next Friday, we'll be giving a virtual tour of the project, including some drone footage and pretty neat stuff. So if you're interested in that, then we'll see you next Friday.
Hey, Rob, have we confirmed the date of the ribbon cutting yet? Is that still kind of being worked on? Just to let them know if we know a date yet.
Yeah, I'm a little bit uncomfortable to announce the date yet, but we can get that information to this group when we have that. It'll be near the end of the month, October.
Thank you. I knew it was coming up. I didn't know if we finalized the date, so just have them stay tuned because it'll be coming hopefully by the end of October.
Yep.
Good enough. Thank you. UTA.
Thanks, Mayor, for this opportunity to give a brief report. We've just spent the last several minutes hearing about the various transit studies that are going on. I just want to emphasize the importance of those studies and the ideas that are being expressed, the concerns that are being expressed that we've heard here tonight even. If you think about it carefully, if you start at the northern end of the point of the mountain and go all the way to Santaquin, we are almost duplicating the length of the front runner system. It is a long system. It's over 50 miles of connected transit services that we're looking into or are being proposed right now. And so it's a major project. If you put the three together and view them as one major project, as Claire has indicated, we're looking at a major transit oriented development here in our transit system that's being proposed. When you and so we're anxious for all of the input that we can get. It needs to be done careful, needs to be done right, because it is such a major part of the transit system as we look forward into the next 3 or 4 decades. I might also indicate the need for additional input in the North Lakeshore study. Hopefully you're able to get that word out and the connection to mountainland.org/NL study for various input from your constituents, because that will have a major impact as well in not only the roadways, but the transit systems that we put into place. And so it's really important that we continue to work carefully with all of you to collect the right kind of information, because these are major investments that will have a long-term impact on all of your communities as we build these systems out. I might just briefly report to you on ridership. We see ridership continuing to increase, rebounding a little bit. We're still significantly down from pre-COVID times, but the ridership is gradually increasing throughout our entire system. Here in Utah County, we see some good rebound, especially along 850 State Street, as has been pointed out on UVX. I ride the front runner into Salt Lake 2 or 3 times a week, going up to the office. And I've noticed the last 2 months a significant increase in those that are riding the front runner system and riding it from and to Utah County. So the ridership is rebounding some. We are taking extra special caution at the cleaning of our buses and trains so that we're providing as clean a system as we possibly can. So that's my report. Just think about the long corridor that's actually being proposed from Draper to Santaquin as a second front runner and as a third north-south alternative, along with I-15 and front runner, to the transportation needs of our communities. So thank you, Mayor, for this time to report.
Thanks, Ken. Okay, we appreciate the updates. Any other business?
So Mayor, I have a question. This is Mayor Brunst. This question's for Commissioner Ainge. I know COG submitted 2 names for the UTA board of Mayor Acerson and Mayor Fulmer. The county commission was going to submit 2 names. I have not heard who they have submitted, and I was wondering if they could tell us.
Yeah, am I the only one on from the county? I don't know if that's officially been sent today. There's a letter, but we did take action yesterday in our commission meeting, and Mayor Acerson and Kent Millington's names were sent to the governor.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? All right, our next meeting will be November 5th, probably right here. Actually, it's in the courthouse, back to the old, we're going old school?
Yes.
Oh my God. Yeah, thank you. So next, on November 5th, we'll be at the courthouse, ballroom 51, South University, up on the 3rd floor. So those who have not been up there, come on up, you'll enjoy it. You'll enjoy it. Okay. All right, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So second.
I got a motion, I got a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you for being here. You guys, if you weren't here, you missed out on steak and lobster. I hate